Alien girl tries human Zara, stood at the observation deck of her ship and watched the blue planet below with growing curiosity and something that felt uncomfortably close to fear, mixed with excitement running through her three hearts. The human world called Earth had been studied by her people, the Valkyrie, for over 200 cycles, but never had they sent anyone down to actually live among them and experience their strange ways firsthand until Hershey was chosen because of her unique ability to adapt her form to match other species and her exceptional skills in xenanthropology. But as she prepared for descent, she wondered if even those qualifications would be enough to understand these bizarre creatures who had somehow managed to thrive despite their fragile bodies and impossibly short lives. Transformation process began in the medical bay, and pain shot through every nerve cluster as her body restructured itself to match human physiology, going from her natural 7-foot frame with 4 arms and crystalline skin down to a mere 5'6" with only 2 arms and this weird soft flesh that felt vulnerable in ways she had never experienced before. Her mentor Kelrix observed the process with his usual detached scientific interest while making notes on his datapad, but she could see concern in the way his sensory tendrils twitched too. "We'll be alone down there," he said, in their language which sounded like wind chimes and distant thunder. "You will have no backup, no extraction team for 6 full moon cycles, I understand," she replied, though her newly formed human vocal cords made the words come out wrong, and she had to repeat herself in the Earth language called English that she had been studying. "I understand the dropship took her down during the night cycle and she landed in a place called Oregon in the United States of America, where the research indicated she would find a good cross section of human behavior without the overwhelming density of their major population centers. Her cover story was simple. She was Amy Brooks, a young woman who had just moved to the small town of Pine Ridge to work remotely as a software developer, which apparently meant she would spend time manipulating their primitive computing devices. The house that had been prepared for her was small and filled with items that seemed to serve no practical purpose, decorative pillows that one could not actually use for sleeping, plants that were not food sources, pictures of humans she did not know hanging on walls. She spent the first night cycle cataloging everything and trying to understand the logic behind human domestic arrangements, but exhaustion hit her harder than expected, and she collapsed onto the sleeping platform they called a bed and fell into unconsciousness without meaning to. Morning came with bright light streaming through the window coverings, and a sound she could not identify at first turned out to be something called birds, which were small flying creatures that humans seemed to enjoy despite the noise they made. Her neighbor appeared at her door within the first hour of daylight, carrying a covered dish that emitted steam and smells that made her newly configured digestive system react with interest. "Hi there," the neighbor said brightly. "I am Sophie from next door. Wanted to welcome you to the neighborhood with some breakfast casseroles." Ara stared at the offering, trying to process the social ritual occurring. "Thank you," she managed. "That is very kind." Sophie smiled wider. "You have got the cutest accent. Where are you from originally?" The prepared answer came automatically. "Norway," she said, which was a place far enough away that her lack of local knowledge could be explained. "Oh, how wonderful," Sophie said. "I have always wanted to visit Scandinavia anyway. If you need anything at all, just knock, okay? We are pretty friendly around here." After Sophie left, Zara examined the casserole with scientific interest. It contained eggs from birds mixed with cheese from cow milk and pieces of pig flesh, along with bread and vegetables, all combined and heated together. The idea of consuming products from multiple different species in one meal seemed bizarre, but when she tasted it, her human taste receptors responded with surprising enthusiasm, and she found herself eating the entire portion despite her intention to just analyze it over. The following days, she began to venture out into the town and observe human behavior in their natural environment. The grocery store was overwhelming with its thousands of choices for every type of food. Humans apparently could not simply eat nutrition paste, but needed variety in flavor and texture, and different options for every meal. She watched a human female named Betty spend 20 minutes selecting bread, examining each loaf and reading the ingredients list, and comparing prices for what appeared to be essentially the same product. "Why do you need so many types of bread?" Zara asked. Before she could stop herself, Betty laughed. "Oh, honey, I know, right, but you see this one is whole grain, and this one is sourdough, and this one has seeds. They all taste different and work better for different things, but they are all bread, Zara said, still confused. Sure, but variety is the spice of life, right, Betty? Said cheerfully. Life is too short to eat boring food. That phrase stuck with Zara because it revealed something profound about human psychology. They knew their lives were short, desperately, impossibly short compared to the 300-year lifespan of her people, and yet instead of becoming paralyzed by that knowledge, they used it as motivation to experience everything. She began to notice this pattern everywhere: humans trying new foods, traveling to see different places, learning skills they would never master in their brief lives, creating art that would outlast them, forming relationships that would inevitably end in lows. At the coffee shop, a place where humans gathered to consume stimulant beverages and socialize, she met a human male named Chris, who worked as a teacher. What do you teach? She asked him as they waited in line. History, he said. With genuine enthusiasm. I know it sounds boring to most people, but I love showing kids how the past connects to their present. Helping them understand that all the stuff that happened before matters, but you teach the same things every year, Zara said, trying to understand. Why would you not become bored? Chris smiled. Different students every year, different questions, different perspectives, plus history keeps happening, right? Yesterday becomes history tomorrow. There is always something new to connect. She purchased something called a latte, which was coffee mixed with steamed milk and flavoring, and found the combination strangely comforting as she sat by the window and watched humans rush past on their way to various destinations. Small human child, no more than 4 years old, pressed her face against the window from outside, making exaggerated expressions, and Zara found herself mimicking the faces back without thinking, and the child dissolved into laughter, and the mother smiled apologetically and pulled the child away. Something
warm
spread through Zara's chest, and she realized with shock that she was experiencing joy from this brief, silly interaction with a tiny human she would never see again. The exercise ritual, called going to the gym, proved to be another revelation about human nature. She watched them deliberately cause themselves discomfort, lifting heavy objects, running on machines that went nowhere, swimming in circles and pools, all to maintain their bodies in optimal condition. A woman named Claire, who appeared to be in her 60s, worked out on the machine next to Zara's, breathing hard but maintaining steady effort. Excuse me, Zara said. Why do you do this when it is clearly difficult? Claire laughed. Between breaths, honey, at my age, if I do not use it, I lose it. I want to be able to play with my grandkids and travel and live my life, not just exist, but you could rest, Zara said. You have worked many years. Surely you have earned rest. When I am dead, Claire said cheerfully, right now, I am alive, and I plan to stay that way as long as possible. This attitude seemed universal among humans, this determination to fight against their own biological limitations, to squeeze every possible experience out of their brief existence. Zara attended a community event called a farmer's market, where humans sold food they had grown themselves and handmade items, and the inefficiency of it baffled her when they could simply replicate or mass produce everything. But a man named Henry, who sold vegetables he grew in his garden, explained it differently. Sure, I could buy tomatoes at the store cheaper and easier, he said, but I like growing them. I like putting my hands in the dirt and watching things grow and knowing that I created something. There is satisfaction in that. You find purpose in creating food that already exists. Zara said. Henry considered this. Well, when you put it that way, sure, but it is not just about the end product. It is about the process, the journey, I guess. Some of my best thinking happens in that garden. She purchased tomatoes from him that tasted remarkably better than the ones from the grocery store, though she could not scientifically explain why. The local library became one of her favorite observation points, and the human female who worked there, named Patricia, showed her how to access their information systems. You can find almost anything in here, Patricia said, gesturing at the shelves and computers. All of human knowledge and creativity just waiting. But you have the internet now, Zara said. Why do you still need physical books? Patricia smiled. There is something about holding a book, feeling the pages, that a screen just cannot replicate. Plus, books do not need charging or Wi-Fi. She checked out a novel recommended by Patricia about humans exploring space, and found herself absorbed in the story, despite knowing that their depiction of space